So I want to go over the Chazon Ish. We did it quickly in the end of the shiur yesterday. I want to go over what's a svara of the Chazon Ish. What is our svara? What's the back and forth here? What's exactly the argument here? So I'm reading the Chazon Ish. It's in Daf Beis, it's Labot Kashitz. In the middle of the page, you have the Chazon Ish. B'Gemara, Bechor u'poshut she'iniach lehem aviem eved u'be'ei motmei o'ketzed oizim. We're talking about the Gemara's question. The Gemara in Daf Gimel asks, if you have a Bechor and Poshut, the Bechor, firstborn son and a simple son, the father left him a slave or impure animal. How do you do? What do you do? Gemara has a problem. And the Gemara's problem, what the Rishonim has a problem too. Because of Arashba, B'Shittim Kubetzes. The Ein HaBechor Notel Pishnayim B'Schar HaBeimo. Basically, he has a problem. What's the Gemara's problem? What are they going to do? Very simple. You should split the rental. You can't cut the animal. You can't divide the animal with its meat and a slave with his meat, with his body. But you can divide the rental, the reward, the payment that people will pay for his work. So the Rashba says no. The Gemara had a problem because the Gemara's Havamina was the Ein HaBechor Notel Pishnayim B'Schar HaBeimo. A firstborn son will not be able to take double share in the Sachar. That's the Gemara's problem. What are we going to do? Mipnei, why? She'ein HaBechor Notel Pishnayim Beroi. The firstborn son will not take a double share in the rental of the animal, of the slave. Why? Because the rental is considered roi, potential.
Why is it roi?
Why it's roi? Shvachtem imela, kol techachom, you don't take.
Is only the blood,
No, the schar.
Schar is not blood.
Not about blood here.
Schar, why schar is called roi?
Schar is b'chloikis rebin chachomim. And according to Chacham, what's the law? Shvachtem imela is roi. Is roi. So it's roi, it's not about halacha. That's what's the problem. What are you going to do? Comes the Chazon Ish, and he stays at Tzarich Chiyuv. What?
What's the potential? They're going to pay the rent. They're paying the rent.
Yeah, but right now, when the father died, was potential, so they couldn't get it from the father. And when they receive it, it's a roi that came, so that all the brothers split equally.
Was the guys paying rent already?
If it wasn't paid yet, it says potential from the time of the father's death. And when they're being paid, it's not. It's from the father's side was potential, and so therefore they should split equally.
Oh, but it's a case where it wasn't paid yet.
It was not paid in the father's death. So when it was being paid, okay, if the time death of the father was potential. So when it comes in, potential money that comes in later on, they split equally, and the Bechor doesn't get a double share.
Why don't we say that since it's a Be'emat Tmeya from birth already, it's not holy because it's already there. It's only Shvach, in other words, there's nothing in the body itself. It's only Shvach, and it's from birth the Shvach. So the father had the Shvach already because they had nothing else.
Maybe that's a svara of the Chazon Ish, we'll see. But Tzarich Chiyuv, this needs investigation. Nay, truly, this is the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish has a problem in svara. Nay, truly, the koydem chaluk before splitting, en lo icher rak chelkoi. The Bechor only has a simple share, betrusas habayis, in holding of the house, the continuation of the father's. The ava sachar roi, and the sachar, the payment, the rental is low, is potential. That's before Chalukah. Why? Because it's only potential. It wasn't there in the death of the father. And my share in Tfusas Habayis, I only have a share in Tfusas Habayis. So it's still the rental is potential.
What's the concept of Tfusas Habayis?
We'll learn more about it, maybe even today. Tfus habayis means when the father dies, all the assets stays in the house. Anyone that's part of the house, continue in the father's house, is part of that. Kovet shiur in the Ma'arach Ozarua, they learn it's like a company. It's like tzibur. There's no private ownership. The father's owns the house, it belongs to the house, and if you're a member of the house, you're part of that, like a company. Tfus habayis is yishut mishpatit atzmait. It's a legal entity on its own, like a company. We're going to see more about it, maybe today. The ava sachar roi, and the rental is potential.
Estate. That's the estate.
Estate. The estate is anyone who's a member of the house, he's part of the estate. But the estate is the estate. It continues. The father continues. His estate continues. The ava sachar roi, and the rental is considered potential. Comes the Chazon Ish, he says, Avol, but Achar sheyachlo kabechorim echov, after the firstborn son splits with his brothers, means they talk about splitting. You take this, I take that. They start splitting, and amongst the things there was a slave or a donkey, behemoth meya. It says once they split, 2/3 of the animals are two brothers, bechoil one brother. So he will get 2/3 of the animal belongs to him. Once they split, Dinu, the law should be the schirus be'emtoy shaloi. If I split and I get 2/3 of the animal, I cannot slaughter it and get the meat. I cannot get the flesh and blood of the slave. There's no meaning. But now that I split, I own 2/3. And therefore, Dinu, the law should be the schirus be'emto shaloi, that the rental of the animal belongs to him. Because the rental is a result of the goof.
Nothing to do with the father.
Nothing to do with the father. V'yesh lo beis shlish schirus, so they have 2/3 of the rental. That's his kasha. And more of that, Ramban Zal Kosov, the Ramban wrote Leforesh, the Ramban we just saw before. Keivan she'ein guf behemot me ro'uyo legufo. There's nothing in the body of the unpure animal like the donkey. It's not proper for itself, for the body itself, intrinsic itself. Rak only lemelocho. The only thing that the body has value for is work. So therefore, Aveleroi is potential. What is he asking you? What the Ramban is saying? The Ramban says, you're right, if it has any value, if I own 2/3 of the animal and has some kind of a intrinsic value, so then you can say that the rental is a result of it. But there's nothing in the body, just the roi, just the melocha, which is roi. So it doesn't matter if you split, you didn't split. Split has no meaning. The lemaisa, the schar is potential, and therefore it never came from the father. It can never come from the father. It can never come from me. So either way, it's roi.
King of Paris, isn't this the same question? Is the fruit of the thing itself?
The fruit of the animal is king and a goof reference to peiros. But when you have king and a goof reference to peiros, when there's a goof, comes the Ramban and says, we'll never have a goof.
So the Ramban's kasha is even before Chalukah, even after Chalukah.
The after Chalukah. Comes the Chazon and says again, v'tzorich hiu. Ma'ishno be'ema t'meyo, mishan keli. What's the difference between unpure animal, donkey, for example, from any other vessels that the father inherit? V'chi lo yitul bechor pishnayim. What do you want to say? That a bechor will not take a double share. Bebei shlisha rechaim. 2/3 of a rechaim means a grinding mill. Shegiya lechelko that he received in his share. What does he understand? He understands that a grinding meal has no mile for its body, for the thing itself, only for the grinding.
We can't rent it.
You can rent, but there's nothing intrinsic.
What do you mean? It's a mill.
The giving of a tree is just
It's a
passion.
mill. If you didn't have the mill, you couldn't
Nothing
rent
by
it.
himself.
The giving of
It's
a
only
tree.
the work. Like an Evan.
A slave is not, you can't slaughter and use the meat. A non-kosher animal, impure animal, behemoth, you cannot use for his meat. So there's no milk, no meat, nothing there.
It becomes like a tree.
So it becomes like a kli. It's something which for something else, nothing for himself. So if I inherit somebody a kli, you wouldn't say that the bechor has 2/3 of it, and therefore all the rental of the grinding mill will be his.
Or be royu.
Why can he sell it? Why can he sell the Evan?
He could sell, but not for itself, only for the usage. The usage is still potential.
It's the Evan itself. You sell it like you sell a watch, you sell a car, you sell an Evan. The thing has value because it's the market value to buy it. To buy it. Sell it.
Yeah, Vadai, but not for itself.
What do you have for itself? You can't, you have to buy the thing in order to use it.
You can buy it, you can sell and buy it for not for itself, for the usage. There's nothing else besides usage. It's a type of a vessel or type of thing that's no use. There's nothing, no intrinsic value, only for the usage. So he says, what's the meaning of this? And a vessel of grinding mill. The grinding mill is made for grinding, for usage. So, and it doesn't have the intrinsic value. The stones, maybe it does, I don't know.
Ryan has it in the house. This is Rishus, not Rishus. The behemoth goes out of Rishus.
It's not, rechaim are not made for itself, only for its usage. It's like a kli.
You still can sell it.
What?
You still can sell it.
Also the animal you can sell. But since it's not ruya legufo,
This is domain.
it's not proper for itself. Rechaim is not proper for itself. I would say to the Chazonish question, yes, it's the same. Bechor and portion and inherit rechaim, we have the same problem. Since it doesn't have any intrinsic value, only if it's usage. Same question. So what is he asking me? V'chiloito? Yes, that was the most problem. The more answers, Yoivid. Also by rechaim, he will take 1 day and take 2 days. We may also the rental will be split. But in the Havamina that is not fair, 2 days and 1 day, rental is also out of the problem, out of the equation because it's out. So I'm not scared from the question of the Chazonish. The same Havamina here, we have the same problem there.
But the problem is,
Ubeloshan Ramban,
Rabbi, by Rechaim is in your Rishus.
yes,
I have a different Bechina Chilu.
yes,
By Rechaim is in your Rishus.
yes.
Sheike, by Behemoth Meir, you said, give it to Malacha, is out of your Rishus.
What do I care if the rental comes with my reshus or not? First of all, people rent out rechaim. People rent out rechaim. People used to rent. You see in the Gemara Bobas all over, second chapter. People used to rent rechaim. It was like people used to eat from their hands. They used to take wheat. People used to go to the market and buy wheat, not bread. If you're a rich person, you bought bread. You bought wheat. You had a grinding mill, you grind it, you put some water, and break bread everywhere in the houses. You go to the third world countries, you see that. People have shacks, and they take grains, and they grind it, and they bake bread. Different types of bread. Bread made out of rice, bread made out of corn, bread made out of grains. Yeah. It's the third world countries still exist, you see. Ubeloshan Ramban, in the language of the Ramban Mevuo, you can understand. The he is dina the goy do igud. That if there is the law of goy do igud, dinu, the law is the noitel pishnai beschar. He gets a double share in the rental, schar habeim, a rental of the animal. Av beloy toin goy do igud. The Ramban seems to say if once you have a way to split the goof by go to igud, so definitely you get the reward. The reward is not potential. Or according to the maskona, I would add to the Chazon Ish. According to the maskona, that there is a way to split the goof by working 1 day and 2 days, which is justice according to the maskona. Definitely also the reward is okay. Which means the Gemara's problem was that if I only have a kli for its usage, so it's always wrong. I can never, has no meaning by splitting the animal to 2/3 and 1/3, because there's no usage for the thing itself. There's no intrinsic value. So the Chazon Ish kasha is really was only a perception. It's not really a question.
If you split the
Yitzchak is an understanding.
if you split the principle, there's a shinui.
The Chazon Ish kasha was if I split the principle to 2/3 and 1/3, the rental will come out of that for sure. But we begging back the question.
It's no longer usage anymore.
Yes, but we begging back the issue that there's no way to split the animal 2/3 because there's no intrinsic value. There's only reference to the rental, and for the rental there's always potential. You understand? So the Chazon Ish kasha is not so strong. It's just a perception. And he himself, he says the Ramban answers that. He says, so here, what, he wouldn't get, if there's no intrinsic value, you don't get it. Yes, the Mos Avamina was. If there's no intrinsic value, the whole thing is only rental, which is always going. So the Bechol never get a double share. And what was the Chazon Ish thought? The Chazon Ish thought was that even according to the Havamina, when the whole value of the animal is for the rental, I still can split the ownership of the body, and the rental will be a result of that. Because it doesn't make sense otherwise. When a vessel which is only made for grinding, for use, a grinding mill, it's only made for usage, I won't get 2/3 because I own the body, and I will get the reward of the grinding 2/3, even though it's only made for that. Since it's only made for that, so this is a definition of the intrinsic value. What? What are you saying?
There's no difference between that and anything else. The house, the field, the car, everything's the same like that. No intrinsic value. That's crazy.
No, that's not true.
What's the difference between a house and a slave?
That's not true. For example, a cow, I can use for its milk, for the meat, and for work. There's a lot of things.
Where do you get the milk? You have to
Land, you can use the earth, use the stones, and you can plow. There's a lot of things you can use for itself. A lot of things that has intrinsic value and external usage. We bring in cases of Eved and Behemoth Meah. There's no intrinsic value, only usage. So the Chazon Ish understand, so what? But I can own the body reference for that. It's like Kinyan Peros, Kinyan Guf, but I can have Kinyan Guf there. And Mele, the Peros is mine. And the Ramban will answer back, no. When I have the Guf, and then the Peros is a result is mine, when I have some value to the Guf, when there's only value only for the Peros, so then I can't say I have the Guf and the Peros will be made of mine. There's no Guf here. It's only the Peros. So if the Peros are a potential, then the Bechor doesn't get a share in that double share. So you can't split it in a proper way. The Bechor cannot be split. The Chelik Bechor cannot be split. Okay, this is the back and forth here. Yes.
But if he said, so if he doesn't take time to all the still works. So what he wants to prove?
We're trying to say same thing is if let's say according to the Maskana, that you have 2 days work for him, 1 day for him. So you made also the schar. Once I have a way to split the goof, so it means you can have ownership on the goof. You made the schar as a result.
So what are you getting from that?
So you made it didoyashbach. So therefore, Bechor will get according to the maskono. If you hold good v'igud, you will get schar. And if you don't hold good, but if 2 days and 1 day works according to the maskono, you also get the schar. The only avamina was if you don't, there's no dina good v'igud. Why you don't get schar? Because there's no any way. There's no value in the body itself. The only thing is you have holy. There's a schar. Schar is holy.
So only if you didn't know,
then you can have some value in the goof, because there's a way to split the goof.
So then you can say
Mele, you can say that the schar is a result of that. And mele is not potential. It's through the ownership of the bechor. She owns the body. If it's a goy lu'igu.
You don't argue with the chazan. You only argue on the concept of the
yes.
kasha.
Yes.
The kasha, not the
yes.
kasha.
And you see the Chazon Ish understood that's what the Ramban is trying to answer. Because after he brought the Tzorich Chiyuv, he brought the Ramban. He says, but Tzorich Chiyuv is what you have to say. He says, well, according to the Avamina, even Rechaim won't split.
So you see from there.
A man says, yes, Rechaim is also the same thing. They brought an example of things which have those intrinsic value. If Rechaim is part of that,
so again,
will be also the same Shaila. Ma'u Ketzer Lo Yisim.
So what comes out of Maskona? Maskona would be the Maisa is.
Maskona, yes.
Gufa Behema, and every also will get on the schar. Because
yes.
you can do good or good.
Since you can do 2 days and 1 day, avoid it.
Good or good.
Not good or good.
1 day, 2 days, good or good. 2 days,
no.
either.
It's a split. Good means going to do something else. Buy me or buy you.
And, okay, so you split.
According to Maskona, that there is a way to split the work.
Right.
So Yimela says that's considered body. And the body I can own 2/3 works only 2 days. He owns 1/3 works of 1 day.
You can do that.
So Yimela, the rental also will have.
You have.
Yes.
Because you have in this.
Once you can split the body, so Yimela also the schar is.
So it really comes down to the kasha was what was the kasha begin? What was the kasha? What was the kasha again? What was the kasha?
He understands that you could do chaluk on the body.
Before chaluk, he says it's more. After chaluk has a kasha.
The schirus as a result.
What he also gets.
Should get. And the Ramban says there's no chaluk in the body because it's only made for melacha, and that's all. He says, Maishno Merechai.
And so what he answers?
He doesn't answer.
They call the Ramban.
No, the Ramban's mashma without good or igud. He gets
But the
schar.
kasha, but the call the Ramban is considered loyal to myself. It's called the Ramban.
We're talking about now that there is no dun gilui. So Ramban says if there is, you get a reward.
The Ramban is talking about if you're not good or good. Then it's called loyal.
Yes.
If you're good or good,
It's not loyal.
then not it's loyal.
That's a side point. But now if there isn't a law good or igud, there's a problem with Tzorich Chiyuv. What's the difference with Rechaim? That after chaluk I should have ownership of 2/3 of that.
So you said Nachanam, you said that way. Nachanam, you have no Yosef, or you said.
Yeah.
You said.
The Avamina also Rechaim will be roy. If Rechaim is considered.
But we don't say that. You said this. We don't say that.
No, he just says since the Gemara only asked in Eved Beimatmez, Mashma Rechaim won't be a problem.
Right.
That's his assumption. Saying no, if Rechaim is the same definition, so it's the same thing. If it's not the same definition, I'm saying if his assumption is right, so the kasha goes on that. He can maybe make chilukim. The Rechaim is not similar to Eved and Beimatmez. Tosfos Reed says.
Those read now?
Yes.
Those read?
Yes.
Okay. You're not so clear. Try and talk a little. Maybe also if you talk a little, try and talk a little clearer.
If
I don't
anything,
know.
turn off.
Okay.
Turn this off. Maybe it'll make it better. But really, you need a lavalier mic. I go straight into the computer.
Okay.
Maybe
Ashta
maybe
Muskeres.
you want to adjust the equalizer.
We're very broken up.
Okay, now you can hear us? You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's not so clear, but we can hear you.
Okay. Ashta מוזכרס ומוחכרס, דלאו ברשוס הדבורת ידעו קיימה. אמרת שוקים. נראה לי. דהי מוזכרס ומוחכרס, לאו על סחירוס הפורו, דעובדו בוסה מססביר. He says, it looks to me that we're not talking about rental of the, or lease or rental of the cow, that did something after the death of the father. The Ovdo Bosla Misa Savir Nokitle. We're not talking about rental that the cow produced after the death of the father. Kedekativno b'madurikam, like I wrote in the first edition. Ukedemashma pitoin Rabbeinu Shmuel zechet tzadikosh livrocha. Also you can in the Sefer from the Rashbam so. The him can, because if we do talk about rental, loy averoma roy be'efer mibaye. The Gemara wouldn't say if schirus is on his domain, the Bechor gets a double share according to Rebbe, roy be'efer, which is not somebody else's domain, it's middle ground. Miboy is understood that you get double share. It's not needed. If the Gemara makes a demon between the two that's not needed, the roy be'efer, then we have a problem. The roy be'efer v'yolda v'ahu b'chayavor. Roy be'efer, she gave birth. The baby was there in the stomach of the mother, the time of the life of the father. V'achreichen ishbiach. Afterwards, the animal became, the baby became better.
No, the baby came out of the world. Zuba was in the stomach.
Was there, and afterwards developed. Aval aschirus, but the rental, loy boy didn't come to the world altogether, right after the death of the father. So a baby is in the time of the father starts, Yoldo, and rental is a new thing that after the death of the father. First of all, what do we see from the Toysas Reed? That schirus, it's a kinyan, or schirus is ishtamshus? What do we see from the Toysas Reed? Schirus is a kinyan or ishtamshus? Has to be. Because the kinyan, it's also the time of the father. Because the father made the contract of the schirus. That the kids didn't make the kinyan. So therefore it should be equal to the vlodois. But if the Toysas Reed says not equal, that the vlodois started, the baby started, the time of the father, because the cow conceived the baby, the cow was pregnant from the baby the time of the father. So it was gave birth mashbiach afterwards, but it was there from the beginning. But the rental, he says, only came after the father's death. What do you mean? But the father made the contract. It's his contract shmeksha. It's not the chiyuv, it's usage. And every moment you use, that's the chiyuv, you can't use it free. Shemila came after the death of the father. Shemila is no dinyo, he says. That's why he can't say that muchkeres means reference to rental, because that's definitely after the death of the father. Nirali concludes the Toysas Reed. The schara poshir vichu achar misasavir, the rental of the cow that they made money off, that they benefit after death of the father, even though the father made a contract, when until he needs it for the threshing of his wheat, and it died within the time, since the cow made it after the death of the father, even Rebbe admits, it doesn't take double share. Very simple. Even Rebbe admits. So what do we see Toysas read? It's definitely the extreme than the Ritva. The Ritva held as what? It's a loan. The father contract is a loan. So it could be even Chachom agree to it, right? The Toysas says opposite. Even Rabbi will hold you don't take the double share. Why? Because nothing with the father. What? The Shimush came from who? From the son. Because the son owns the cow. Email is a Shimush of the cow that he owns. He gets a double share. No, I mean, he will get a Wednesday. I didn't answer that question. That's a question that's understood. But I have to say the same thing, that he didn't demand it. But as far as the father didn't give it to him because the father never owned it. So, and since it came from two sabais, because the Bechor didn't say, I want it yet, you have to say that too. So mainly they have to speak equally.
The father didn't own what?
The father's contract did not produce the payment of the rental, because the payment of the rental is due with usage. And every time you use, you need to pay. And that happened after, and whatever happened after the usage after the father's death. There's nothing with the father anymore. So even according to Rebbe, you don't get a double share. It's totally potential. Roy is a new thing that came afterwards. And since the Bechor didn't say, I want to split yet, that's the case. Like we said, in Toys Old and Shoni Iran, you have to add that. So in Meile, it's not coming from the side of the Bechor. It's only coming from two sabais, so they split equally. Nobody would say that you get a double share. Afilu Rebbe moide. Even a Rebbe will admit that the Shokre Pishnai doesn't get a double share.
What it means is she's actually a gomen. What is actually a gomen?
He's just saying normal things. Normal thing is the father will not rent the donkey when he needs it.
So he needs it for himself.
So you rent it out until he needs it for the goyren.
For himself.
What does goyren mean? He needs the donkey to run around and spread and separate the grains from the shaft. It's called goyren, time of the threshing hole. Until then, he rents it out for other people to plow.
Why he pushes that? Why he pushes it so far?
He's saying the normal case. That's it.
Why does he say that?
Yes. So the father made a contract for a certain time.
It means only his money.
Only his money.
So it's my secret, the conscious is mine.
Yes. So it doesn't help. Doesn't help, he says, because it didn't come from the father. The schara po is nothing to do with the father.
No, but he made his money.
Schirus that came after the father's death is nothing.
So you see from that he will.
Even though the father made the contract, even though the father made that contract until that time, it doesn't matter. The contract has no meaning.
Why?
Because the obligation is ishtamshus. Yes, the reason of payment is ishtamshus. It's very clear. It's very clear that the ritva that held that even chachomim will agree. Turn the page back. The ritva that says what? The ritva on top of the page are Aleph and Slabot Kashit. The ritva says what? In the left column. The ibes 3 lines on the top, on the left column. The ibes uzei deschirus chakirus. He says we're talking about the rental money of the rental or the lease. Im kein anu milve. It's a loan, and a loan even chachomim. There's an opinion that chachomim even really agrees that you get a double share. And the Mishnah talking about Rebbe talking about a loan, talking about other things. Shvach mimela, not a loan. And other Rabbi by a loan is an opinion that even chachomim agree to it. The ken avel lemeimar behedya. Come on, if you talk about milve and not shvach mimela, the Gemara should have mentioned. It's talking about milve, like the price later on.
What, you mean the father left
So-
before his death, and after his death he looked to get the money back to the inheritors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Say, so according to the Ritva, I define rental as like a loan. The father made a contract, and he owns it, and the children will own the but the money is being owed to him.
Right, he had the situation all set up before.
All set up before. I love that word. All set up. The father made all set up in his time. See, he says, "Don't do." So it's
He doesn't get. Even set up, he doesn't get.
No, even according to Chacham, he gets.
No, we say here, but he said.
It's the milvan. There's an opinion that holds in Chacham you get. So you see, so according to the Rito, the definition of rental is a loan because the father made it all up. The Tosfos Reed is totally opposite. Let's see the Tosfos Reed again. A line and a half before the end of the Tosfos Reed, before the end of the right column. He says, "Nigeli, the schara po shirvichu armisas avim, the rental of the cow that they made money off after the death of the father. Afal pi shavio iskir, even though the father rented means he all set it up. You hear Yoshua? Afal pi, what is afal pi? Even though shavio iskir, even though the father made all set up, he rented it out. Ad shia goygen, until the time of the threshing hole. Umeis, we're talking about the father died within that time, so we should say the father set it all up. No. Kevan sha'asosa aparo. Who made the value? The cow, not the father set up, because it's the usage. The cow made it up. Achar misazavim, after the death of the father, afilu Rebbe moed, even Rebbe admits, the lo yishokil pishnayim, he doesn't get a double share. So we have two opposite opinions in the spectrum. We have the Ritva, and we have the Tosfos Reed. Rabbeinu Yoel is in the middle. He has a suffix. I look at it as loan, I look at it as a ribis, I look at the cow made it. He has fakers back and forth how to define it. But we definitely have two opposite opinions, which is the Ritva and the Tosfos Reed. When Rebbe says, I get shvach mimele, when the shvach started the father's life. The oisiv mi'elav, and it added by itself, called shvach mimele, achar misoso, after his death. Like little wheat that became big, shlufefei, small figs became big figs, or porum uberes, or pregnant cow, v'yolden gave birth. Aval porov and isabu achar misasaviem. If you have a cow that the whole conceiving, the pregnancy came after the death of the father, or iloni betapos, or like trees that after the death started to grow fruits. Moide Rebbe admits the lo yishoki doesn't take.
New thing, a new dignity.
V'chein, same way. Masha apora niskeres, or the cow gained money through rental. Achar misazavim, after the death of the father. Something new. Capish? So it's very clear that Tosfos Reed is usage. And it's very clear that the Ritva is what? Is Kinyan. Good. When it says the word gave birth, it's not only, goes on both. Ben aporo, roya beif. It doesn't matter if it's a cow that gazes in the field. Ben aporo mukel that acherim, or goes on a cow as rental or leased in the hands of others. Still, when even though the baby is not in your domain, in somebody else's domain or middle ground domain, still you get a double share. That's what more as a kasha. If it's in somebody else's domain, you get a double share in the baby. Surely if it's in middle ground, nobody's domain. Surely she gets. Moses, you're right. There's needed to teach you there's no loss of money. No chosar mazoyin. Is not needed because both goes on the baby.
Because the Uber was there already.
Yes, Uber was there. But if the Uber was not there, or the rental came afterwards, nothing to do with it. It's even Rebbe admits you don't get double share. Let's see the Ritva, next Ritva. The Ritva says, Ritva, Tonu Rabbonon, הבכור נויטל שניים וכולי בשבח ששוכבו לחוסר מרזבים כיצד. That's the line of the Braisa. ולכמון נוקרים לו כרבי, later on the Gemara says this Braisa is Rebbe. ונראים דבורים, comes the read what he says, it looks to me, The Rebbe called Shvach Shavah Nechosim Me'aleim Koma. Shvach, that they added value by themselves. Va'afilu, listen to what he says here. Va'afilu yoklum moise shvach. Wow, Kshamei Psh. Even was nothing there when the father died. For example, trees start growing up in the field. Or the tree start taking out fruits which was not there at the time of the father. Even there, according to Rebbe, you get it a bullshit. So we see, because it came by itself. Even though the whole thing came after the death of the father. The Torah, because potential that came by itself is like a muchzak. Shvachti v'mele kemuchzak nomi. The Torah lo matin lekamone v'leremi mikro lechol asher yimotze loi. Ela shvach shishvichu yoshim levad. When the Gemara Iran is memayit, excludes, according to Rebbe, from where it says whatever is being found by him and not roi, only muchzak not roi. When the Gemara defines what is roi, shvach that the esoimim, that the inheritors created, means the middle ground. If the Yisrael didn't do it, and the whole thing came afterwards by itself, it's part of Muchzak. In the end of the Braisa says clearly, only if the inheritors, the Yisraelim, bought houses, planted vineyards, the Bechor doesn't take a double share. But the middle ground, or shofchu me'aleim, but if it became shvach by itself, afilu hu shvach mechudosh legamri. Even though it's a complete new shvach. Dumya denotu krom bechol or bishnayim ali ben Rebbe. He's not saying that rental is something new. Because you already said the previous ritual says rental is like a loan. And the father made a contract. He's not saying that. But he said, let's say even if I would own that rental is something new, like the definition of Toisa Srid, still I will get it. According to Rebbe. What? Because since it come by itself, it's like his.
It's not the Yisomim.
Rebbe said that according to Rav Papa said that the Machlokes Rebbe and Chachomim is by when it was a small stock became a big stock. Shalfu and more small dates became big dates. Lichor is not true. According to Rebbe, even as totally something mechudosh, as long as it came by itself, it's part of it. So Rav Papa's definition is wrong. That's a kash against the Ritva. So he answers. Mishum Rabbonon hi. The Gemara mentioned that tell you that even though it was not a big change, but small change from small fruit to big fruits, it's a small change. Even then, Chachomim argued that the Bechor doesn't go over share. But really, according to Rebbe, not only a small change, even a complete change, something new totally, it's in, and he gets a double share. V'chendas Rabbeinu Meir v'ikar. Is also the das of the Re'o. That's the Meir. So what do we see from the Ritva? We see the Ritva on... What? Yeah, the Ritva saying... The Ritva argues on the Machloikas of Rebbe and Chachom. And he says that according to Rebbe, Shvach Meila, even if it's Shvach Mechudosh, even if I would say like the definition of the Toisa Srid, that for example rental is something new totally, or according to the Ritva, what happened if the mother conceived the baby after the death of the father? The cow. According to the Ritva, according to the Rebbe, you will get it because Shvach Meila, even if Shvach Mechudosh, something new is Shvach Meila, is Kamuch Zog Domi. Only if the Soimim did an action to create themselves, then it's not as out of the posuk. Achrimot is not motzui. But if it's Shvach Meila and it's told Mechudosh, I will get it. But according to the Toisa Sri,
he holds status quo. He holds status quo.
What means he hold?
What we're talking about here,
The ritvo?
he calls, since it was started initially, it goes on even after.
No, that's not what he's saying. Even though if it didn't start before, it's something new, but it came by itself, according to Rebbe, is part of Muchzokus. So we have a very extreme machlokes here.
Before.
What?
The father was holding before.
The cow.
The cow.
But the shvach is totally new.
That status goes on.
Even on something new, a new shvach, totally new shvach.
He holds the status.
According to Rebbe, it goes on, yes.
Wait a second. If the baby gets fat,
That's Vadai.
well, who gets it?
Even Chachom agrees against the bush.
Okay, they get double.
Yes,
What are the things
because
that-
like diklavolim, everybody agrees.
I know, so what difference does Shabbat with fruit have a tamale? What difference is that in that?
No, because that's ishtane, that's changed.
Actually, Shimon.
Yes. Now let's go back. What do we have in extreme machlokes here? According to the Ritva, he's arguing two things. First of all, he says rental is a loan. The father made it all. It's like a baby being conceived at the time of the father. But you should know, that's number one, he's saying. Number two, he says, Vanai, this is machlokes Rebbe and Chachamim. He's saying you should know that Rebbe holds, even as totally mechudash, even then, Rebbe will agree that you will get it. And Rabbanon argue to the extreme, that not only if it's mechudash he doesn't get, even if there's a small change, that the baby was conceived, etc., or the father made a contract for rental, even then Chachomim argue you don't get that bullshit.
And the Tosus leads holds in
They just say it's no. They just holds that the machlokes Rebbe and Chachomim is only something that was there before. Like a baby was, but if it's something new, like a new conceiving after the father's death, or rental which is after the father's death, you know, it doesn't get.
I'll be the machlokes.
Yes. You see the next one. Keitzad iniach lehem avim por muchkeres u'muskeh b'arei pirush. Muskeres lemoes was rental for money. Umuchkeres kein chakirut soda sheyitin labayim lebchoser. Or lease, like you lease it, at least like leasing a field, and you give the master is this destruction. Ushmocha in the value. If destruction you pay. If it gets better, you pay. If it get benefits, you pay part of the benefit. Uvlo noiseo, the same thing in the babies. Where something is known. Or they split a half, a third, or a quarter. He's saying it's all the same. According to the Ritva, schirus, babies, is all the same. Why? Because who made the contract? The papa. See, that's what he says, all the same. It's clearly the Ritva L'Shitosah. Clear, right? That's what's all the same. He puts it all the same. Muchkeres lemois, muchkeres shesol habayim lebchoser v'shvocha v'lo ydoser davar yadua. He says babies, rentals, all the same. According to Rebbe, he gets it.
Same what?
Then according to Rebbe, he gets it. Double shever chacham, he doesn't. But he puts chakirus like a baby being conceived at the time of the father. Same line. Why? Because like the side of the Rishonim in the Gemara b'Metzia Memtet, Navay Dezorah, that yesh schirus is mechir leyoyma. It's itself, and then the father made the contract. La 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 That's why he continues. Those babies, babies doesn't say when the babies were conceived. Time the father afterwards. ונירים הדבורי, yes, ונירים הדבורי. לפי מה שפירשתי, דלי בן הרבי, according to Rebbe, אפילו ניח רקוניס, even though the father left the cow empty. When he saw born, it was conceived after the death of the father. ויולדו, the shvoch limele, uveguf ha'ashbach. It's considered shvoch limele, according to Rebbe, is considered as if it's muchzok, and he gets a double share. Turn the page. והיינו דלויktoni, that's why the Mishnah in Tosefta Bechoros didn't mention that the father left it pregnant. Just says Violdo. Doesn't matter. But according to Chachomim, Avel Rabbonon, to the extreme, even the father left it conceived, והוא כראובו, and you can recognize the baby. אין בכור נויטל בשניים. A firstborn son doesn't get double share. They came the loyotzo la'avir oilam. Since he come to the world, to the air of the world, kechafira v'avashiboyle shalfu v'avetmorechoshu. It's like something changed, it's something new. It's like a stock of wheat became shibolin, complete wheat, or small dates became a complete dates. It change. V'lo karim b'chol asher imot zelo is not called like it's being found in his hands. It's very clear, right? Very clear. Mucho claro. Aval moiri netreo achmona v'ishmerei. Oy used to say, my Rebbe should live long used to say, who's the Rebbe of the Ritva? The Re'o. The Re'o, Rabbeinu Meir. Oy used to say, Aaron HaLevi.
Aaron HaLevi.
So he said, moiri netreo, used to say, Shim'u kara'ubo, if the baby's recognized when the father's died, death, moirim chachomim. Wow. Chachomim will admit that it's like a tree that became thicker. Ukepitmo de guva, it's like a fanning of the body. When is a machloikas rebin chachomim, and when is or totally afterwards, or was pregnant at the time of the father, but wasn't recognized. But if you can recognize the baby at the time of the father, even Chachomim will agree that the Bechor gets double share, because it's like dikla ve'olim. Some people say they hold no, even according to Rebbe, you need to recognize the animal. This is like the Tosasri. I don't know Tosasri even stronger than Tosasri. You need Niko Ubo according to Rebbe. What looks to me, I wrote not like his Rebbe, and not like the Yeshoyim, rather it's all the same. Okay.
Perception.
Yes.
That's a big,
We see the same ritvo, down below is another ritvo, see the same thing. That really the father did it all. Okay, you see the same idea. Okay. Now we're ready for this small nesivas. Turn the page. Turn the page, we have a nesivas here. Abechoi noitel bo bevlodo. The firstborn son, it's in the last page of Slabotka sheets. The last page.
I got it.
And top you have the Nesivas. Abechor noitel bo bevlodo. This goes on the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch says, Shulchan Aruch paskins, what's the halacha? Shulchan Aruch paskins, really we should print it as Shulchan Aruch, so people should see the final Shulchan Aruch. But don't print now. Rabbi Yosef is only 5 minutes.
I can print with the Nesivas. If that with the Nesivas, I can do it.
Okay, go ahead. It's better so people understand what's going on. What's the halacha? We learned. What's the halacha? So you have to see the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is not clear. So in the meantime, until he brings down, so let's jump in the Nesivas. Let's see the Rambam. See below the Rambam. Iniach lahem poro muskeres or muchkeres. The Rambam says, if he left them a cow, rental or leased, or the animal was gazing in the field, v'yoldo, and she gave birth, abechor noitel bo ubevlodo bishnai. The bechor takes in it and its baby double share. This is also the language of the Shulchan Aruch. Again.
You're reading the Rambam?
Rambam. Read the Rambam. I started in the Sivas, but I stopped because I'm sure was going to print the Shulchan. And the Shulchan was really the Rambam. The Rambam says if the father left him a cow, rental or lease, or the gave birth to babies, Bechoy gets double share. And everybody attacks the Rambam. Why? Why the Rambam is not right? Because Allah is like Rebbe or Chachomim? Chachomim. How can he paskin Rebbe? Banan mechaveirov. That's the halacha. So how can the Rambam paskin like Rebbe? This is everybody's problem. So it must be what? Tesis brings down. He goes back and forth on it. But the rule of the Rambam itself is, Allah is a Rebbe mechaver or not mechaver. This is the Ravid. Look at the Ravid on the side. הניח להם פה המוזכרת על פי שניים, אומר אברום, זה המחבר פוסק כרבי, ואין הלוכה כרבי. The Rambam פסק כרבי, and הלוכה זה like כרבי. So then Magid Mishnah in length trying to give an answer that when the Gemara says Amani Rebbe was a question, and the Gemara answers Omar Rav Papa that what? That when is a thick a tree is stem became thicker, there's no machloikis. When there's a change, there's a machloikis. Complete change, everybody owes nothing. And just thickness added, everybody agrees. When there's a machloikis, when there's a small change. So he says, the Rambam holds that a pora that was rental and a cow that gave birth to a baby is a small change. And the Kontra Maskonim and Chachom agrees to that. It's like Dikla Ve'olim. So now we're ready for the Nesivas. You have to see the Magid Mishnah, the Kesef Mishnah, Lechem Mishnah. Okay? He learns that the giving birth of the baby goes on all three. Noisel Bob of Loda. So babies on all three, and babies are defined it as diklovoli. Because so let's say the mother was conceived already at the time of the father of the baby, and then was born. So it's like diklovoli. Remember we saw that opinion? They're all had, what they're all held. They're all held that if the baby was recognized, even Chachom agrees he gets it, right? Let's see again. Aval moiri back in Gimel in the Ritvo. Aval moiri ne'etra ramon yishvereo imer shimu karubo moirim Chachom diklavolim kibol gufa. Everybody agrees. So that's what the Rambam learned. The Rambam learned that if the baby is recognized, it says gave birth. So he takes her and a baby. Since the baby only gave birth now, but the mother was conceived before, even Chachom agrees to that. According to the Maskona. Okay, there's a lot of different answers there.
Did you just go to the new Ritva and Gimel? That small Ritva in between there?
No, I read again the Ritva and Daf Gimel on top. And the left column that he brings down is Rebbe Mori Nitreva Chamona Vishmereu. Mori Nehoy. That he says if the baby was recognized in the lifetime of the father, even Chachomim will agree that it's like Diklovolim, that he gets a double share. The Bechor gets a double share. So then if that's Pshat Rambam, it's okay, it's going Chachomim. It's an option. But let's see what the Nesivas says. Nesivas. Please, let's see what the Nesivas. I am Sma Sifkoton Vov Dainu Bishvoch. When the Shulchan says Bechor takes a double share in it, and its baby, what does it mean in it? In it means a shvach of the animal. Which shvach? Became fatter or rental? Mashma midvorov the beschirus ein unoitel pishnayim. only in it, even according to the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, that he gets a double share in the cow and in his babies. Cow means fatting of the cow. But rental of the cow, even according to the Rambam, the halacha, he doesn't get. Ubalechem Mishnah kosav she'ab beschirus noitel. Wow. According to Lechem Mishnah, even according to the Rambam la'alacha, even rental he gets a double share. Which means schirus starts from the beginning and he paid in the end. That should be a reason that it's part of the deal of the father. Wonder on it. It's still alone. Or a loan that the time to pay off was the time of the father, still alone. And there's a shayla if Chacham agreed to that or not. And the halacha is that even according to Chacham, he doesn't get it. Okay. Comes the Nesivis, he says, V'lo yishami alon lo yisvores alechem mishneh v'lo yisvores aksor. He says, I don't hear anything what they say. Why? Let's look carefully how he defines it. Dekan mischirus atzoimeach achar misas oviv mayri. Here we talk about rental that grew after the death of the father, because the whole thing is davar chodosh after the death of the father. Mayri we deal with. Dumya deshvach sheshovre nechosim v'zaviv. We talk about added value that grew after the death of the father. The end of fresh, there's no difference. Im yeshno eschizu etchilu vatzoif or rak besoif. It doesn't matter if it starts from the beginning till the end or only in the end. The whole thing is usage, and that something grew after the death of the father. So how do the Nesivos understands, my friends, in this kasha? Usage. And he has a kasha. But if you learn there's a maisakinyan, there's no kasha. So definitely they held it's a maisakinyan.
So he's like Tosfos Reed.
He's like Tosfos Reed, yes. So his whole kasha of the Nesivos are only based on understanding like Tosfos Reed. Achal mikol mokoim nim afilu znaiti ikor she'en on noitel aschirus. He says, I hold that you don't take the rental. Why? Like the Tosfos Reed. There's no greater change. He holds like the Nesivos as it's shvach after the death of the father, but he holds even more than the Nesivos. Or, no, not more. Because the Nesivos held something that came after the death of the father, he doesn't get it, right? But he holds even stronger. He doesn't get it because it's a shinui.
When you say he, you're meaning who?
The Bechoyer.
The Bechor.
The Mali Shailon Tzeperois. What's the difference if the tree took new fruits? Shena Bechonoitel Afilu Pagish Asu Tmorim. The Bechor doesn't take, according to Chachomim, even small figs that came big figs. Or Shoabeim also Pegos. So the animal made fruits. And they malach through work. It's something new. It's a no shinui. So the father Bechor should not get double share. וכן באימו שנישאה בו אחר מיסס אביו. ויולדו אינו איתו פי שניים, כמו שכזה כזה חוישה. ולפי זה ודאי דסחירוס הפורו, וכן פורו שנישאה בו ויולדו אחר מויסוי. Rental or she became pregnant and gave birth after his death. Keperos dom is like something new, a new fruit that came to the tree. It's equal of the belongs to the giver, and they split equal with the inheritors. So what the Nesivos holds? The Nesivos definitely held like who? Two things, like the Tosfos Reed. That is a usage, and he held that if something new after the father, definitely doesn't get it. Totally like the Tosfos Reed. But really, when the Nesivos screams and shouts, there's only one opinion. There's other opinions that he's showing him. You can definitely say opposite. Okay. La 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 So I would finish with this. Our point is a very serious point. Why? Because la halacha. The Nesivos is a halacha book. The Nesivos holds the halacha. That's the ikar. And we ma'ir on the Nesivos as we machlokes rishonim. So even it's not la halacha, it's still open. It's a suffix, machlokes rishonim. La 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 la. It is very clear. And the Sivas holds the halacha that schirus, it's like a new baby being conceived afterwards. And according to Chachomim, for sure he doesn't get it. Right? And we learned in the Rishonim that maybe it's like a loan. And the father made a contract way before. And maybe Chachom agreed to it. What's the halacha? Halacha is like Chachom. And if Chachom hold by a loan, he gets it. So he will get it. If not, not. If not, so it'll be equal. Like the Nesiva says, halacha, but not any time, and not for this reason.